All right, welcome to the 53rd edition of Before the Battle. This is an afternoon show. We don't usually do these too often. It's usually us at basically midnight talking fights, half asleep. But this time, it worked out. I read it right at this time. It's 1:30 Central, where I am and where my guest is. Go Paulo is out. Wesley Riddle is out for this week. They'll be back next. But joining me here on the program to break down the Tough 24 finale, which goes down this evening, he's an MMA Mania video contributor, Flyin Brian Jeffries. Flyin, how's it going? Brian, I should say.
You can call me whatever you want, Nick. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on the show. You mentioned it's in the afternoon, and I'm also highly caffeinated. So if I start talking too fast, that's a little bit why. You mentioned that Wesley Riddle's not here. He's dealing with some illness, and so I wish him well. I hope he gets well really soon, and my thoughts are with him. He seems to be going through some pretty difficult stuff right now.
Yeah, he is getting better. I don't think he's 100%, and also him kind of having to go to the hospital also resulted in him being behind in school and whatnot. So that's basically why he's not here. Health is a bit more important than before the battle. Not a whole lot more important, but a bit more important. It's passable. We'll definitely gave West a pass on that one. Tough 24 finale, as I said, goes down this evening. It's a pretty okay card. You can't complain when the title is on the line, but when Tim Elliott is fighting for it, well, yeah, I don't know. It's Demetrius Johnson and Tim Elliott in the main event for the flyweight championship. Interesting matchup, but Johnson is, of course, the huge favorite. Last time I checked, about minus 1,200 or so. Maybe it's gone up, maybe it's gone down. I don't know. But that is what we're going to be talking about closer to the end of the show. The event goes down from Las Vegas, Nevada, at some sort of casino. I don't have the venue up in front of me, but it's not the MGM Grand or T-Mobile. The Palms, that's right. So it's just a smaller venue, which makes sense, which is what they usually do for the tough finales. We will start out on the Fight Pass prelims. Kicking things off, two fights that really I don't have a whole lot to say about. Joshua Stansbury and Devin Clark. Do you have a pick or really anything to say about this one?
Gosh, I don't know. It's tough to make a pick, Nick. Josh Stansbury, he's not very athletic looking. He's kind of got this dad bod. His attacks really meat and potatoes, just kind of comes forward. He does swing some heavy hammers. Devin Clark is a really athletic guy. He hits really hard as well. He kind of overextends himself, not nearly as bad as Derek Brunson did recently, but he does overextend himself. He was winning his last fight handily. He dropped Alex Nicholson, I think, on two separate occasions. And then all of a sudden, he got caught on the temple and just went out like a ton of bricks. I think these guys are going to swing heavy leather. It could be whoever lands first, but I think Stansbury has not been finished with strikes. Even though Devin Clark is the more athletic guy, he's got the more diverse attack. It's going to be difficult for him to stand up to the heavy punches that Stansbury throws. Both of them have some decent wrestling. I don't have a pick, I suppose. I would lean Devin Clark because he's more athletic, but I question if his chin is actually bad or if that was just a fluke thing where Nicholson dropped him. I'm going to go with Devin Clark, but zero confidence, man.
Yeah, you essentially, even though your confidence level is at 0 for this one, you hit the nail on the head for me. Anyways, I'm going to go Devin Clark as well. Don't really have a whole lot to add. I feel he's just a bit more dangerous on the feet, a bit more athletic. I am interested to see sort of where his chin is at because he suffered his first pro loss after being on looking for a fight in his UFC debut earlier this year. And as you mentioned, that was the loss, the late TKO in the first round to Alex Nicholson, who was a underdog going in. Seemed like Brown Bear, that's Devin Clark, probably should have won that fight or kind of was on his way to and was certainly favored. But it's going to be interesting to see if Stansbury isn't known for his knockout power, so that's one reason this could be a good matchup for Devin Clark, who of course has 50% of his wins coming by way of TKO KO. So it could be a good matchup for him just because Stansbury not a huge threat on the feet, in my opinion. But if he does catch him, if Clark's chin is that bad, he could probably put Devin Clark out. But I'm still going to go with Devin Clark here. Despite him being on looking for a fight. Usually like to fade those guys because they're just not that fantastic. But I'm going to go Devin Clark here. I'll go probably second round TKO. Wouldn't be shocked if a finish happens in the first, though. Next up, the Future Fight Pass prelim, another sort of not the best fight, not the best matchup, but we're gonna quickly go over it anyways. We got Elvis Mutapchik, the King, taking on Anthony Lionheart Smith. Do you have a pick here?
Nick, I'm gonna be honest with you. I do have a pick, and it is really, really biased. Anthony Lionheart Smith is from Nebraska, and there are very few fighters that are from Nebraska that are at this high level. He's also from, I think, the same town as my girlfriend is from, so that's something to notice. But also, this fight kind of demonstrates how a lot of fights are going to go on this evening. I feel like there's one fighter that's really good early, and that fighter fades, and the other fighter's really good late. Mutapchik likes to wait, and then he'll attack in the third round. Lionheart Smith, really good in the first round, tends to fade severely. So if it goes to a decision, it's all about who's going to win the second round. And I just feel like Lionheart has the more diverse attack, and he'll have the lengthier weapons because he throws a lot of kicks. Mutapchik's swinging kind of wide. So I think that Lionheart's going to win round 1 and 2. Mutapchik's going to turn it on in round 3, but it'll be too late. One win for Nebraska.
Unfortunately for you, I'm going to go the other way. I will say Nebraska loses at the tough finale. I'm going to go Elvis Mutapchik here. I think he'll be able to grind this one out. Both guys are pretty gritty. Both guys are rather tough, but I feel that Smith is just not really UFC caliber, and I hate saying that about guys, but I feel like he's one of the lesser UFC fighters still on the roster, currently on the roster. He of course was re-signed after a few wins in a row and got the job done over Leleco, but then he's coming off the loss to Cesar Fajea. Mutapchik, I believe his last fight was the draw to King Kevin Casey. I'm going to go Mutapchik. I think he'll just be able to sort of weather the storm, as you mentioned there, and sort of pick up the pace in the later rounds. I don't think he finishes. I think he grinds this one out, makes it gritty, makes it grueling. I think grueling is a great way to describe how this one will play out. Not really going to be too fantastic of a fight to watch. Both guys are going to be huffing and puffing in the third round, I suspect, but I think Mutapchik will get the better of Lionheart and take home a decision victory. Next up, we got Caitlyn Curran taking on newcomer Jamie Moyle, who was on The Ultimate Fighter 23. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
That this is my least favorite fight on this entire card. A lot of people care about Caitlyn Curran because she made her UFC debut against Paige Van Zandt. And our friend Steve-O-Nomics, Steve Reed at Steve-O-Nomics on Twitter, loves Caitlyn Curran because she's decent looking. But beyond that, there's a minimal reasons for me to care about this fight. Moyle's coming into the UFC on a loss. Caitlyn Curran, is she on a 3-fight losing streak or just 2? Let's look.
I want to say she just won.
But she's okay, so she's 1-3 in her UFC career. I just don't care about either lady. I picked the upset just because I'm just fading Caitlyn Curran. I think that her skill level is minimal. So I'm hoping that we can get this newcomer to rise in the ranks of this division. But zero care.
Yeah, I'm kind of on par with you about the care and how much I care, how much I don't care sort of rate. I don't know much about Jamie Moyle. She didn't win the Ultimate Fighter, so that kind of makes me think she's not fantastic. Caitlyn Curran, definitely not fantastic, but I think her overall skills are going to be a bit better. I'm just worried because she seems to lose fights that she should win. She was doing well against Chambers last year sometime, and then she gave up this mission in the third round, and she's done that a couple times, and I kind of question her fight IQ a little bit, and just kind of how like she just seems to throw fights away, and not on purpose, of course, but she seems to get caught. And could she get caught tonight? It's very possible, but I mean, she's sort of riding a little bit of momentum. It's her first UFC win anyway, so I'm going to go with Caitlyn Curran to get the win, but I'm not confident, and I don't really know if she stops Jamie Moyle. She could pick up a sub, but probably more likely than not just wins a fairly decisive decision. Next up, we got an interesting lightweight matchup. Two guys that are not fantastic by any means, but I think these guys are going to throw down and really pick up the pace of this card, which I kind of suspect this card to not start out fantastic, but sort of as time goes on to pick up the pace. And I think that starts here. Dong Han Kim, not that one. It's the little Dong, Maestro. The Badger, OReilly.
Little Dong. I'm going to call him Maestro Dong, because that's his nickname. Yeah, like you said, this fight, I didn't care about the last one. I really, really care about this one. I think that even though these guys are unknown, they're never going to be known fighters in the eyes of casual fans. They're known maybe in the eyes of hardcore fans, but they're never going to be popular. They're never going to make it toward the top of the division. But these two dudes are going to throw some hammers. Brandon OReilly made his UFC debut. Must have been on short notice because it was against Alan Brahma Joban at 170 pounds, and he was really undersized. So here we got a fight against Dong Hyun Kim, a lightweight fight, so it's in the weight class that he really belongs in. He's not going to be at a size disadvantage. I think the tail of the tape is virtually identical. Both guys excel in the clinch. Brandon OReilly got destroyed in the clinch by Brahma Joban, but once again, that size difference. Dong Hyun Kim looked great in both of his UFC fights where he lost both of them. He looked great right up until he lost. I think that Dong Hyun Kim is the more skillful fighter. Down the road, he would be the more sellable guy to casual fans, bring some more hype because his style is interesting. It's not quite like the Korean Superboy, but similar in that regard. I guess I probably profiling. But anyway, I think Dong Hyun Kim will end up knocking Brandon OReilly out in where they just kind of stand in a phone booth and throw wildly. One of them's going down. Fight definitely won't go the distance. I'm going to go with the Dong Maestro.
Yeah, the under should cash in this one. Dong Han Kim, this guy is probably already a fan favorite just because of his fight over Apollo Reyes. He picked up a loss in that one, but that is arguably one of the best fights of 2016, and it's two guys that we hadn't heard of really this time last year or so, or just a bit more than that, because Kim actually did make his debut just a couple days over a year ago today. So I think it's going to play out exactly how you said. I think they're going to be super close, boxing range, and just throw down. Not a whole lot of skill will be involved, but that sometimes, as we saw in the Apollo Reyes fight, makes for the better sort of war. So I'm going to go Dong Han Kim. I think he'll catch OReilly. I think he has the finishing power advantage, and I think that's really the only thing that's going to matter here, because I think they will just go in and throw down until one guy goes down. Kim also has a good chin. He, of course, eventually got caught against Reyes in the third round, but he took a lot of damage before that. OReilly, I'm not too confident in his chin, so I'm going to go Dong Han Kim. I think he's the harder hitter out of the two. And so, yeah, give me Dong Han Kim.
The line on this, sorry to interrupt, the line just changed on the over-under 2.5 rounds. It was -110 for under 2.5, and now it's even. So you think it's going to be under 2.5 rounds, Nick?
I have to say so because, I mean, could it be a finish with 2 minutes left in the fight? Yeah, but I think it's going to end before 2.5. If I had to pick, I'm not confident because, again, 2.5 rounds by then that you guys are tired and stuff like that. But I would go under 2.5 if I had to put something on it.
I think if it goes past 1.5, it's going to the judges, because then they'll be tired. Their wild power hands will be really ineffective. So if it goes past 1.5, I think it'll go to the judges. But
then look at the Kim's last fight against Apollo Reyes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. But yeah, I don't know. I would pick under 2.5 at +100 if I was playing some pretend gambling.
Yes, for sure. So give me Dong Han Kim, Lil Dong, the Maestro, via second round TKO. Next up, we got an interesting bantamweight matchup between Rob Font and Tough 24 flyweight fighter Matt Schnell, who's moving up in weight because he took this fight on about a week's notice. Rob Font, danger. Matt Schnell, Rob Font, the favorite here. Let me just pull up the odds. Oh, no, never mind. The odds aren't on UFC.com. I don't have time to check another website. Rob Font, though, is about a 2.5 to 1 favorite. Last time I checked. Yep, so there you go. Rob Font, -255. What's the comeback on Schnell? Probably +135. +235. Okay, who are you going? Rob Font, the favorite. but we've seen crazier things happen.
Nick, I checked out your interview of Matt Schnell. I also watched some other videos on him. So, the octagon jitters thing is not going to be prevalent in this fight, I don't think, because Schnell has experience being in front of the camera, and he seems to be a really, really confident man. I was going to ask you why he was making this fight at 135 pounds, because he was what was it, Titan or Legacy 125-pound champion?
Legacy, yeah.
Legacy. This guy really impressed me. I watched a couple of his fights from Legacy, watched some of his highlights. He's really good in the pocket when they're close up. He dropped a bunch of dudes. He's good with submissions off of his back, and he's good at chaining submission attempts together. I've never been that impressed with Rob Font. I know a lot of people have. He's probably the better striker, especially at a distance. He's got more combinations. He actually has some good wrestling, too. I think it was Joey Gomez. He took Joey Gomez down and controlled him there a little bit. Why my picture went away? I think that if Rob Font were to take this fight to the ground, then Schnell's going to submit him. But if it stands on the feet at a distance, Rob Font's going to win. I love that line at plus 235 on Schnell. I was really impressed with him. And if you look at the tail of the tape, Goldberg's going to tell you that it's virtually identical. But I think that Font's going to have a little bit of a size advantage. My pick on UFC Pick'em is going to be Rob Font, but I will not at all be surprised if Schnell really surprises us here, because he's not going to have the octagon jitters. And he's a really skillful guy, so I look forward to his fights down the road. But for this one, Rob Font via decision.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rob Font here as well. I think his striking is just going to come into play here, and that's going to really be the fight. I think Rob Font the better striker, and I think Matt Schnell, if he wants to win this one, he should take it down to the ground, although he is pretty confident in the striking as well. But I think he'll figure out rather quickly in this fight tonight that, well, he's going to get hit a little bit by Rob Font, maybe even get tagged and realize, hey, maybe I shouldn't stand with this guy, go for the takedown, and probably realize that he either can't get it down to the ground or maybe he does have success on the ground. It could happen. As far as submissions go, he does have the advantage, but as you said, Rob Font does have a little bit of wrestling, although he is known for his knockout power, or not necessarily knockout power, but just his striking, very crisp and whatnot. I'm going to go Rob Font. I think coming off his first UFC loss to John Lineker, I think that's pretty big. I think he probably learned a lot from that fight, took a lot away. He's going to come back the best Rob Font we've ever seen. Matt Schnell stepping up on a week's notice. It's hard to pick a guy who's making his debut on short notice, coming off the Ultimate Fighter. A lot of tough weight cuts in the house, of course, back-to-back, week-to-week. He is moving down to flyweight after this one. He's just stepping up to bantamweight because it is on short notice, so that makes sense. He's not really at a size disadvantage. The reach, I believe, is very similar. Maybe Font has an inch or two on him, and the height is identical as well, 68 inches here on UFC.com. So the size shouldn't be that big of a deal in favor of Font, who a lot of people were thinking, oh, Font's much bigger because he's a bantamweight, has fought at featherweight. So that really won't come into play. I think it's just going to be Rob Font picking apart Matt Schnell on the feet. Schnell, very honest in my interview with him. He said he admitted to being nervous, and even though he said he's nervous in all of his fights, I'm not too sure that's maybe sometimes nerves are good, but being too nervous isn't necessarily. It's hard to say what that means, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go Rob Font. I think he stands back, picks apart Matt Schnell on the feet, and wins by decision. Next up, we got the headliner of the FS1 prelims, Gray Maynard, taking on Ryan, the Wizard Hall.
The Wizard, I didn't know that was his nickname. That's phenomenal. I love that. So everyone said this. If you're watching right now, you've heard, and you've watched other people talk about this fight, you've heard this 1,000 times. Gray Maynard's chin, absolutely gone. Ryan Hall, a jiu-jitsu wizard, as his nickname suggests. I picked against Gray Maynard in his last fight against, doesn't really matter what his name was.
Bruno.
Bruno, yep. Because Gray Maynard's chin is absolutely gone, and Bruno has never had a knockout or a TKO victory in his career, he rocked Gray Maynard early on, and with the goofiest punches you've ever seen, basically like palm strikes, just winging his palms at him, and he rocked Gray Maynard, and not really close to finishing him, but he did rock Gray Maynard, and people are kind of shitting on Ryan Hall's striking skills. He's been out for a year just working on being a mixed martial artist rather than just a jiu-jitsu guy with Wonder Boy, Stephen Thompson. And his striking wasn't bad a year ago when he fought Artem Lobov. He throws some decent kicks, you know, and he might not have knockout power and he might not have very good hand skills, but once again, Gray Maynard's chin is gone. I wouldn't be surprised if Hall could rock him on the feet with any type of strike, get him to the ground, and submit him. And I saw a lot of people say that Gray Maynard is a terrible matchup for Ryan Hall because of Gray Maynard's wrestling skills. But going back to Maynard versus Bruno, Bruno controlled him on the ground a few times with a whizzer. I think that Gray Maynard, obviously a lot of people have been saying that Gray Maynard is a ghost of his former self. I would pick anybody over Gray Maynard at this point. And Ryan Hall, I love that he's this jiu-jitsu guy coming over, really working to be a mixed martial artist. I'm excited to see him fight, and I'm basically picking – one, I want to see Ryan Hall succeed, and two, Gray Maynard is his chin is completely gone. So I'm picking Ryan Hall. I would not be surprised if we see a TKO. Wouldn't that just be something? But I think Ryan Hall gets the victory.
Yeah, no, this is a tougher one than I kind of initially thought, just because when you really sit down and think about it, this is an okay matchup for Gray Maynard. This isn't a bad matchup because he's not fighting a knockout artist. He goes in there against a guy that likes to bang and get up in your face, and yeah, Gray Maynard's going out right away very quickly, and I'm confident in that. But Ryan Hall has never been known for his knockout power. He's actually known to be quite one-dimensional on the ground. But as you said, I mean, you're training in mixed martial arts. He's working on his striking. I can almost guarantee that. And although maybe he's not where he needs to be right now, I think over time his striking is going to get better. That would make sense without ever actually talking to him and asking, "Oh, Ryan Hall, are you working on your striking?" Well, you'd probably hang up the phone if I asked that because that's a stupid question. But as far as this matchup goes, Maynard, maybe he could control him with his wrestling, maybe. But I think more likely than not, Ryan Hall actually submits Gray Maynard. I don't see Ryan Hall knocking out Maynard, even though Maynard is a ghost of himself, has a terrible chin, and looked awful at the weigh-ins yesterday. The cheekbones were popping out. He just looked so sunken in, so dehydrated. It's really, really scary stuff. But Ryan Hall, still not a knockout artist at all. I think, though, he has enough power and has enough skill on the feet just to be able to rock Gray Maynard. As you sort of mentioned already, I think we could see a Hall rock Gray Maynard and then go in with his little heel hook or a more basic submission like a guillotine, rear naked choke, whatever. I think Ryan Hall does tap out Gray Maynard. Maybe it'll just be in exchanges and they'll be rolling and then he'll catch him. Maybe, though, he could rock Gray Maynard on the feet and then get the job done on the mat that way. I think either way, could see it happening. Gray Maynard, I wouldn't be shocked if he wins just because he's better on the feet and he has the wrestling. But if Hall gets him down to the ground, takes him down, that's where Hall is just fantastic. And I think he will do that. And I think he'll probably catch Gray Maynard midway through the fight. I don't think Maynard's chin will be an issue just because I don't see, well, it could be, as I said, because Hall could rock him. But either way, I'm going to go with the Wizard here to pull off wizardly things. Give me Ryan Hall by submission. Next up, we got Brandon Moreno, the Assassin Baby, coming off a huge upset over Lewis, the Last Samurai Smoker, taking on Babyface. I love how Baby is in both of their nicknames. That's just fantastic. Ryan Binoy, the underdog going in. Brandon Moreno, the favorite. What are your thoughts on the matchup? And you think Brandon Moreno, this guy was on Tough 24 this past summer, coming in over Lewis Smolka, top prospect, top up-and-coming rising star, as a major underdog, pulls it off. Do you think his winning ways continues here?
Gosh, I almost hope that they continue because I loved his post-fight interview when he was just like this little kid that was super ecstatic to be there, just the genuine happiness. Not like, some guys are like hyped and they get a little bit angry, but that guy was like giddy almost that he got that victory. Love seeing that upset. In this fight, we've got a guy that's really good with his, not necessarily purely jiu-jitsu, but with his submission attempts and submission victories, and and that's Moreno. Binoy is basically a boxer with really big, heavy hands. He knocked out little baby Pettis, right? So we got babies in 3 of them. So we knocked out Pettis. Brandon Moreno, he's a come forward kind of guy, then looking for submissions. This is going to be an action fight. I think it'll be really exciting. I do think Moreno will pull it off because I'm always picking diversity, and he's the more diverse player in this game. But we might be seeing a little bit of shine from Moreno after beating Smolka. You know, we might be overhyping him or analyzing his skill set because of that victory over Smolka. That could have been a fluke. It could have been. I'm not saying it was, but it just could have been. There might be some shine on it that's kind of clouding our judgment. Ryan Benoit's been around the UFC for a while. He's not coming off the Ultimate Fighter or anything like that. I will not be surprised if Ryan Benoit can put him down with some heavy hands or hurt him early and then make Moreno hesitant or tentative. He's not going to be tentative early. Perhaps Benoit could put some hands on him, make him tentative, and then ride it out to a decision. But I am picking the assassin baby to get a submission victory, maybe round number 2. But once it gets past like the 7-minute mark of the fight, that's going to go down, and we could see a decision or Benoit getting another late stoppage. But, yep, assassin baby for me.
Yeah, give me the assassin baby here as well. Brandon Moreno just shocked me very much in his UFC debut against Louis Smolka, as I already talked about. Did not see that one playing out how it did, but props to Moreno for going in there on short notice, huge underdog, and getting the very impressive submission win in the first round. Ryan Benoit, as you said, power punch on the feet. If Moreno stands with him, we could be staring up at the lights in 5 or 10 minutes after the opening bell. If he gets the takedown and gets this one down to the ground, I think it's Brandon Moreno's world there, and I think he'll easily tap out Ryan Benoit. Bust him up maybe on the feet even a little bit, even though Benoit is, of course, the power puncher in this fight, the power advantage, but Moreno's striking isn't terrible by any means, so he could pick apart Benoit on the feet a little bit, bust him up, as I said, and then go for the kill on the ground. I think it'll play out something like that, but give me Brandon Moreno here by submission midway through the fight. I don't think it'll be a first round. I think he'll be a bit more calm in the first round of this one, not go for the kill so quick, but I do think he does eventually sometime in the second round. Next up, we got a women's bantamweight fight between 2 contenders, Sarah McMahon, number 7, and the unranked Alexis Davis. The only reason Alexis Davis, I should add, is unranked is because she's coming off a 1.5 long layoff or so. She had a baby in March of this year, so she's been out of action for quite some time. Her last fight came all the way back at UFC 186, April 2015, a win over Sarah Kaufman. Sarah McMahon, Alexis Davis, America versus Canada. Brian, are you going to go with your fellow Canadian in Alexis Davis, or do you think Sarah McMahon pulls it off?
Well, I'm all for Canada. I just have to go for Canada every single time. But I mentioned earlier, Nick, about not giving a shit about Caitlyn Curran versus Moyle. I honestly don't care about this fight. I saw on UFC.com there was an article about 5 reasons to watch The Ultimate Fighter season 24 finale, and Alexis Davis was one of those reasons. And sure, she has some great jiu-jitsu skills. She's pretty darn well-rounded, but I think that the initial wave of women's bantamweights that came in, they're not It's 35% of the time. McMahon has the ground skills, and she has a big overhand right. She has the takedowns and the ground skills. Obviously, she was a silver medal Olympic wrestler. I know that Alexis Davis has some decent submissions off of her back, but I think that McMahon is going to take her down and just kind of lay on her for, 13 minutes en route to a decision victory for Sarah McMahon. I'm fading the layoff, and I don't know. I watched film on Alexis Davis, and I hear people talking about how she's really exciting and she's got these submission skills. She just doesn't look that great to me. Maybe I'm being cynical, but yeah, I've got McMahon via bump and hump decision.
Going against your fellow Canadian. I see how it is.
Yeah, my patriotism is low today. The caffeine that I had earlier is making my patriotism kind of disappear.
Where's the caffeine from? I hope you're not just shooting caffeine pills, but at least.
Oh no,
something.
I made some French roast coffee this morning, and I put a little skim milk in it. It was real good. Yeah.
You got to get on that Chimera coffee.
Oh, I hear a friend of mine recently got sponsored by them.
Yes, your friend, I believe his name is Nick Baldwin, if that sounds right.
No,
I believe that's it.
that's not it.
No? Andrew Lawrence, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. Andrew Lawrence. The MMA Circus got sponsored by Kimura Coffee. What was it?
It's Kimura with the E instead of the U, so Chimera.
Let's call it Kimura. Makes more sense.
It does. But yeah, anyways, this matchup, I'm going to go with the fellow Canadian here, not because she's Canadian, maybe a little bit. No, that's not the reason. But now this is a tough one because she's coming off the layoff, and physically after a baby, you're going to be different, and maybe you're not going to be the same. I mean, we will see a different Alexis Davis. I can guarantee you that. Will it be a positive change or a negative change? We'll find out in a few hours. But it's really tough to say. I don't think she'll necessarily be where she once was at physically. And the layoff is definitely concerning because I asked her, I interviewed her a few days ago, and she said straight up, again, very honest and whatnot, which I appreciate. But she said her camp has been a bit challenging just with the baby, having to find babysitters, sometimes having to bring her to the gym. It's a distraction. As much as new humans are fantastic, they're distractions. When you have to go train to beat someone up for 2 months straight, obviously an 8-month child is going to get in your way some days and sometimes in some days. So it's very, very tough fight to call because of the layoff. Will Ringross be a factor? Perhaps. It's very, very likely, or I mean, it could happen. Sarah McMahon, on the other hand, hasn't been too impressive in the UFC. She once came in, as you said, silver medalist in the Olympics for wrestling. Very hyped up. Thought she was going to be the next champion. Maybe not the next champion, but thought she was going to do really well. And yes, she did make it to a title shot against Ronda Rousey. That played out how every other of Rousey's fights played out besides the home one.
And the next one.
And yeah, and she's kind of gone downhill a little bit since that fight, especially. She is coming off the win over Jessica. That wasn't that impressive of a win. Kind of
Jessica I's on a 4-fight losing streak.
That's a good point. Before that, I believe she got starched by the champion, Amanda Nunes. Before Nunes was on her little run, that was kind of the beginning of it. Before that, I believe she lost to Miesha Tate. Yes, she is losing to top fighters, but I still think she's kind of on her way out. Is Davis still are her days are her better days in front of her? Probably not. I think both fighters are kind of going downhill a little bit. But I think matchup-wise, stylistically, it's actually an okay matchup for Davis because I think McMahon's going to go for the takedowns. But Davis, as you said, definitely her best sort of area of mixed martial arts is the grappling game. So I could see Davis pull off some sort of choke on the ground after getting taken down, or maybe she finds herself looking for the takedown and kind of pulling a rear naked choke off or something like that. I'm going to go loud, Sarah McMahon, but I'm not confident. As you said earlier, confidence level is at 0 just because of the layoff, just because of the baby. How will that affect her? Has she been working on her game for the past 15 or 18, I should say, months? I don't know. And she didn't really, she kind of, I asked her, and it's hard because you can't really train as much when you're pregnant or when you have the baby. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm still going to go Alexis Davis by second round submission. Next up, we got the Incredible Hulk, Ian Cutelaba, taking on the Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier.
Man, this fight should be a banger and a slanger, and it should be over pretty quick, I would think. Cannonier, he's moving down from heavyweight, and he wasn't, a huge heavyweight by any means, but isn't his only loss as of late against Sean Jordan? So that's nothing.
Yes.
that's not a bad loss, especially when actually they were kind of both undersized heavyweights, right? Well,
and it was your debut, I believe. So
yeah. So he's coming down here. He's had some cardio issues. Cannonier. He's had some cardio issues, and so cutting weight, like we're going to talk about in the co-main event, cutting weight and having difficult weight cuts can deplete your cardio a little bit more. So if he was struggling then, maybe he did a shit ton of cardio to lose the weight. So who knows? There's a lot of questions there. But basically, Nick, I'm picking Ian Cutelaba because I'm buying into his gimmick. I love how he paints himself green for the weigh-ins, and I was extremely impressed with his performance over Johnny Bravo. His hands are quick, and his combinations are furious. He's always moving forward. This is going to be an action fight going down, and if they don't go down, we could see a slop fest, a kind of boring sludge, but like a heavyweight fight, but at 205 pounds. But I'm picking the Hulk because I love his gimmick. I think that he has better hands than Cannonier. He's going to be able to put more combinations on Cannonier, where Cannonier is going to be looking for like a single shot to put Cannonier down. Interesting. This is something that I always look at. Cutelaba is 22 years old. I don't know how long it's been since his last fight. Not that long, actually, but these guys that are almost your age, Nick, they improve by leaps and bounds every time we see them. I was improved with Cutelaba before. I think I'll be even more impressed with him in this fight. But I would pick doesn't go the distance, but my pick is the Hulk.
Yeah, Ian Cutelaba, I'm going to go with the Hulk here as well. I'm really impressed with his win over Jonathan Wilson not too long ago. Although he didn't get the finish, which was a bit surprising, but that's almost a good thing because we see, well, Cutelaba, he does actually have good cardio for 205 pounds. He can go to the judges and look all right doing so. So that's a plus. We haven't seen Jared the Killer Gorilla go to the judges, and that's probably a good thing also because I'm not sure a Cannonier in the third round would be a pretty sight. I think Cutelaba, I think the biggest thing in this fight is that he's going to have the combinations. I think he's going to be a bit more accurate on the feet. It's going to be the Killer Gorilla looking for the bomb. Could he land? Absolutely. Could he put Cutelaba away? Cutelaba actually has a good chin, so probably, but maybe not. I think even Cutelaba maybe doesn't hit quite as hard, but I think he's a bit quicker. He's actually a somewhat of a slow light heavyweight, but I think he's still a bit quicker than Cannonier, and I think he's gonna be able to land those combinations and eventually score a knockout. Maybe not in the first round, but I think midway through the fight, I feel like I'm picking all second round finishes, which is kind of bizarre. But I think Ian Cutelaba is going to get the job done in the second round. Cannonier is just going to be a bit too slow, a bit too tired, and Cutelaba is going to get the job done. Cannonier, though, is a bit bigger physically. He's actually a small heavyweight, but I still feel he's a bit thicker. So could he lay and pray a little bit? Absolutely. I could see that happening, but I got to go Cutelaba, keeping it on the feet and scoring a knockout win in the second. Next up, we got
Nick. How did Cannonier look at weigh-ins yesterday? I didn't see it.
I didn't either, so I don't know. That's actually an interesting thought because he made weight as far as I know, but it would be interesting to see sort of if he's smaller and how smaller.
Yeah, because his last victory, I think he weighed in at like 244 pounds. So to weigh in the next time at 206 pounds, if that's even true that he weighed in at 244, that's a big jump. What is that? 30-something pounds? No, 28 pounds, if I'm doing math quickly. So anyway, yeah, we should look that up.
38, but yeah, doing math quickly, not hold on. Yeah, 38.
38. I mean, that's a ton of weight to cut, but he obviously made the weight, so I'm impressed with that. But I need to go look at pictures of him at the real weigh-ins, not the ceremonial, and then I would be more confident in Cutelaba if he looked kind of emaciated. But I haven't heard anything about it on Twitter, so he must have looked just fine.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree there. My pick still remains the same, Ian Cutelaba. Next up, Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger taking on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Pretty interesting welterweight matchup. Masvidal, of course, a former lightweight, has been at welterweight for about a year and a half now. Ellenberger is coming off a crazy win over Matt Brown. Pretty big underdog in that one. Comes out there and almost beats him in 5 seconds. And then, of course, just a minute or two into that one, gets the job done in their July outing. Jake Ellenberger, though, is the underdog. I imagine right around 2-1 or so, maybe more. Are you going to go with the favorite here, Jorge Masvidal, or do you think the Juggernaut can make it 2 in a row?
I mentioned earlier that I've got some bias towards Nebraska guys, and Jake Ellenberger is from Nebraska. His brother wrestled and coached at the college that I graduated from, so I've got some bias there. I would love to see Jake Ellenberger get this victory. He's got some huge power in his right hand, but that's almost it. And George Masvidal, or Jorge Masvidal, he's way more diverse. He's the lengthier striker. Jake's used to have some grappling skills, but I think that George could even control him on the ground. Just think that George is way too diverse for Jake Ellenberger. But once again, I would love to see Jake land that right hand. I have zero faith in that happening, though. It was great for him to beat Matt Brown. I don't see him. I think that George Masvidal could beat Matt Brown at this point. I know MMA math is not something that we should be doing on a regular basis, but George Masvidal, he's too diverse. The only question that I have here is occasionally George likes to take entire rounds off, and he's like, all right, so I won this fucking fight. Let me just hang out here. Let me just bob and weave and just kind of do my thing, kind of chill out for the rest of the fight. I don't need to put in too much effort. They're only paying me like $20,000. So look for that to happen. I really hope that doesn't happen. But Masvidal via diversity.
I like it. Jorge Masvidal is my pick here as well. He probably knocks out Jake Ellenberger. He definitely doesn't want to go to the judges just because, well, more often than not, he gets screwed over by the judges. This is a tough one. Well, it's not too tough, but I feel Jake Ellenberger, he still has that power. Power is the last thing to go. So could he clip Jorge Masvidal? He could. But I think Jorge Masvidal is going to be too quick, coming in from different angles as well. I think he's going to confuse Jake Ellenberger on the feet. I think he's going to pick apart Ellenberger on the feet en route to a late TKO victory. I don't think he starches Ellenberger in the first round or anything like that. I think Ellenberger takes it to deep waters, but I think the later the fight goes, actually, Ellenberger probably goes down. I think his cardio might not hold up either. Jorge Masvidal can go 3 rounds, but my only issue with Gamebred's game is that, as you said, he starts to fade a little bit, and not necessarily because he's tired, but he kind of just, as you said, takes the round off, figures, I'm up 2018. I can coast this round and still pick up a 2-1 decision. That's fine with me. But then you got fights like the Ali Quinta one and the Lorenz Larkin one, and even though he thought it, he wasn't. And then, of course, their opponents got the job done in those fights. So, again, it's a tough one to call, sort of. But I think Jorge Masvidal should win this fight. But it's always a worry picking Jorge Masvidal in fights just because of the whole idea that he sometimes coasts and sometimes. And also, some people like to say he's a slower starter, but I almost think he's a bit of a quicker starter than not, and we saw that in the Ali Quinta fight, and then he starts to fade as the fight goes on. So it's going to be an interesting one, but I think Masvidal should be able to finish Ellenberger, if not win a decision, but you never know with those judges, so we'll see. Next up, we got the co-main event of the evening. This is a really, really awesome flyweight matchup, going to likely determine the next title challenger, especially if Joseph Benavidez gets the job done. Joseph Benavidez, former title challenger, taking on fellow former title challenger. Both guys have lost a combined of 3 times to the main event fighter in Demetrius Johnson. Joseph Benavidez, Henry the Messenger Cejudo. Are you going to go with Joe B here? The Beefcake, I guess, is informal nickname. Or do you think Henry Cejudo gets the upset?
Dude, I've heard so many different nicknames for Joseph Benavidez. You got the Joa Constrictor, Jobi-Wan Kenobi, the Beefcake you just mentioned. I want to call him Jobi-Wan Kenobi or the Joa Constrictor. I'm picking Joseph Benavidez, and I feel almost bad about it because everybody that I've seen is picking Joseph Benavidez. Absolutely everyone that I interact with on the internet is picking Joseph Benavidez, and I think it's a close fight. I picked him basically because I mentioned it earlier about who did I mention it about? About Lionheart, Anthony Lionheart Smith. I said I would talk about this later. Cejudo, he has a difficult weight cut, and he tends to fade later on in fights. Joseph Benavidez starts slow in fights, so I think that Cejudo will win. Holy crap, my getting tongue-tied. Sorry, folks. Joby Wan will lose the first round to Cejudo because Cejudo starts fast, tends to fade. Joseph Benavidez starts slow and really picks it up as the fight goes on. If you just look at Fight Metric and the stats on Joseph Benavidez, how many strikes he throws and lands per round, his first round is always the slowest, and then he picks it up as he goes. And oftentimes in the third round, he'll double up on strikes landed and thrown from the third round to the first round. Or, the third round is twice as much as the first round. I think that right there is a big factor in this fight because I do think that it goes to the judges. I mentioned Cejudo is going to win round one, but as Benavidez starts picking up the pace, he has quicker hands and he has more combinations than Cejudo. He's going to be throwing a more abundance of strikes, a more diversity of strikes. Cejudo, once they're sweaty, won't be able to get Joseph down. And Cejudo doesn't have that great of control on the ground. Yes, he's good with takedowns. He's obviously an Olympic gold medalist wrestler, and he took the best fighter in the world down in Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. So I do think he gets Benavidez down early, but Benavidez great at scrambling. Will be able to get back to his feet once they're sweaty in rounds 2 and 3, unable to get Joseph down and control him at all. And the abundance of combinations that Joseph's going to be throwing will get him a 29-28 decision victory. But once again, Nick, I feel weird about it because everybody's picking basically the same thing. And when we're all on the same person, sometimes we get fucked or bad things happen to us.
Or we're just right. And I think that's what's going to be the case here. Give me Joseph Benavidez by unanimous decision in this one. I don't think he finishes this fight. I think Henry Cejudo is just tough enough to not get finished by most guys other than the champ, Demetrius Johnson, who, of course, just mauled Cejudo in April. Both guys have been out a little while. Benavidez a bit more than Cejudo, so we'll see if that affects them. Both guys, of course, had the tough little coaching stint on Tough 24 this past summer. So they definitely know each other quite well. Spent, what was it, like 6 weeks in the house? I don't even know how long Tough lasts as far as how long they're actually in the house for. I clearly don't watch. Joseph Benavidez, though, I think his striking is just going to be what determines the winner here and determines him as the winner. I think he's going to be able to keep it on the feet. I don't think Henry Cejudo will be able to get Benavidez down to the ground. Benavidez is very, very well-rounded, arguably the most well-rounded fighter in the division, not named Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. This guy has good takedown defense. He has good guillotines on the ground, good submissions overall, decent wrestling, good striking. I think he's just better than Henry Cejudo basically everywhere other than wrestling. Cejudo, of course, Olympic gold medalist for wrestling, although he hasn't used that as much as he probably should in his UFC tenure. Of course, he does go for takedowns, and he has scored a lot of them, but it's almost like a backup plan. Like, he likes to sort of say, I'm a Golden Glove, I'm a Golden Gloves boxer. I'm going to box this guy up, and then he wins, but nothing impressive at all and not decisive. The split over Jesse Formiga. He gets the job done over guys like Chico Camus, who's not in the UFC, Chris Carriazo, who's retired, but he doesn't look dominant, really, to me, dominant enough that he should have. He's like a minus 1,000 favorite. He's younger. He's overall the better guy, and he gets past Chico Camus, but Camus had his moments. That was about a year and a half ago. I'm just haven't been that impressed with the messenger. Benavidez, I feel like he's lost a small step in the past couple of years, probably dating back to the second loss over DJ at the end of 2013, I believe it was. But I'm still going to pick him here. I still think Joseph Benavidez gets the job done. I think he keeps this one on the feet. I don't think he gets taken down. And if he does, I think he gets right back up. So I don't think the wrestling will really be an issue for him. And I think there's more combinations on the feet. Henry Cejudo, he's all right on the feet, but I just feel like Benavidez can put everything together more so than Cejudo. Benavidez, of course, he's a vet. He's had way more fights than Cejudo. His veteran savvy will come into play. I feel like he's a bit more fluid of a mixed martial artist than Cejudo is. I think he can kind of combine his entire game together a bit more than Cejudo can. Cejudo is still a little bit green, even though he's a top 5 guy. I think Benavidez will just be one step ahead of him for 15 minutes. Give me Joseph Benavidez by close but clear decision, 30-27. Maybe Cejudo can score a round, but I don't think so. Next up, we got the main event of the evening. UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson against the Ultimate Fighter 24 winner Tim Elliott, who is probably a 10-1. I know, well, Johnson's a 12-1 underdog. I don't know what the comeback is, or not underdog, Jesus. Johnson's a 12-1 favorite, and the comeback on Elliott's probably close to that and plus money as well. I mean, Demetrius Johnson, he's going to beat Tim Elliott. If you're picking Elliott, Mr. Flyin Brian Jeffries, you got to have a pretty damn good reason.
Demetrius is -925, comeback on Elliott plus 725. Nicholas, here's how this fight's going to go down. Mighty Mouse, he got taken down by Henry Cejudo, and I think that even though Henry Cejudo has incredible takedown skills, he's a gold medal wrestler in Olympic wrestling, right? But his MMA wrestling isn't as good as Tim Elliott's. Look at Tim Elliott's wrestling. He took down Joseph Benavidez and controlled him right up until he got Joa constricted in their fight. He also did – you see that slam that he put on Zach Makovsky? I think that Tim Elliott has a little bit of a size advantage. Perhaps Mighty Mouse is toward the end of his career here. Not the end of his career, but he's getting a little complacent because he's been at the top of the division for so long. He thinks that he's just going to smoke this jabroni that got kicked off the UFC. I think that Tim Elliott takes him down right away and is able to sink in a guillotine choke. I'm picking the major upset here. Tim Elliott's going to get the victory, Nick.
Okay, let's put $10 on it right now. Or
I'm
something.
kidding, Nick. The reason I said that was so that after this video's done, if somehow Tim Elliott gets the victory, I can cut that piece of the show and be like, look, I called that shit. So, no, in all seriousness, Tim Elliott, he struggled with some of those guys on The Ultimate Fighter. He puts himself in terrible predicaments all the time. He got mounted guillotined in the last fight of The Ultimate Fighter. He was in a bunch of submission attempts from guys during The Ultimate Fighter. He put himself in terrible predicaments in his last tenure with the UFC. I do think that he's UFC caliber, and I don't think they should have cut him. But if you make a single mistake against Demetrius Johnson, and with how many mistakes that Tim Elliott makes, I think that DJ is going to finish him early. Crazy thing here is that the over-under 4.5 rounds was at even money. At under 4.5 rounds was at even money last time I saw it. I think that Demetrius Johnson submits Tim Elliott when Tim puts himself in a dicey and terrible predicament early on in this fight. I think that Demetrius Johnson shows out. This is a highlight reel fight for him, just kind of building his highlight reel. Demetrius Johnson's going to get the victory pretty darn easily, man.
Yeah, this is a fight that shouldn't be happening. Demetrius Johnson, pound-for-pound king, and Tim Elliott. He's a good fighter. I believe, as you said, he's UFC caliber and shouldn't have been cut, but he's a guy that, well, he does make some mistakes, and he doesn't look that good against mid-tier guys, to say the least. So if Tim Elliott pulled this one off, biggest upset ever, I think. I think this probably tops Matt Serra over GSP just slightly, but I think it does because DJ has been dominant for so long, and that was GSP's first title defense at the time.
It would be bigger because Tim Elliott was cut and comes back straight into a title fight and then gets the belt, where Serra he never got cut from the UFC, right? I know he was on the comeback season of The Ultimate Fighter, but he never had a fight outside of the UFC when he came back to fight GSP, where Tim Elliott, he's had 3 or 4 fights outside of the UFC and then comes back and straight into a title fight.
Yeah, exactly.
If he were to get the victory, that would be fucking incredible. I would love to see that. I like Demetrius Johnson. I love watching his video game streaming. I like his interviews. I love the spinning shit he does after he wins. But I love chaos. I love upsets. I would love Tim Elliott to win. It's just not going to happen.
No. You mentioned Tim Elliott on tough. Maybe not as impressive as some of his other real fights, so to speak, non-exhibition matches, I guess you could say. I can't really speak about Elliott's tough fights just because I didn't watch The Ultimate Fighter. I watched one episode. That was the first episode. Tim Elliott didn't fight in the first episode. Therefore, I did not see Tim Elliott fight on The Ultimate Fighter. So the only thing I will say about that is, though, you got to give Tim Elliott and all the fighters on Tough the benefit of the doubt for perhaps underwhelming performances on some occasions, just because they're cutting weight week after week. Like, they have fights every 2 weeks or so, and they're cutting quite a bit of weight. And just being in the house, a lot of other fighters that, well, they're kind of your enemies. It's just, you're not always the best when you're in the house. You really can't take a whole lot away from fights in the house. Often you see guys, especially I've seen just looking at Tough brackets recently, like Latin America Tough and whatnot. There's a lot of guys that lost on there that are doing way better now in the UFC than guys that even won the show. So again, it's hard to take much away from his Tough fights, but you still have to look at them because they were his most recent fights. But I mean, Demetrius Johnson is just so good. His Muay Thai is fantastic. His clinch game is fantastic. His overall boxing is just fantastic. His wrestling is fantastic. His submission game is fantastic. There's literally no part of his game that isn't fantastic. Tim Elliott, his only chance of winning this fight is by some sort of flash knockout, and Tim Elliott's not even known for his knockout power. He's known more so for his submissions and grappling game. And it's kind of, he's a funky guy. That's why I give him the slightest chance of all chances. I literally give him 0.01% chance to beat DJ, but I'm giving him more than 0% chance just because he's a funky style, and he's not really like anyone DJ has ever fought. But all of that said, he's still just not a top contender fighter. I mean, he beats Titan FC fighters, and he's their champion. But that's because they're Titan FC fighters. They're not pound-for-pound kings. Demetrius Johnson is the pound-for-pound king because there's literally nothing bad, or I can't say anything. Like, can you even pick an area of DJ's game where you think he can get better? Of course he can get better, but is any area of his game, even the smallest of small things, is there any area that it's like, okay, DJ maybe not fantastic there? I literally think he's great everywhere.
Maybe I watched a lot of film on him, and I was trying to find exactly what you're asking. Maybe his takedown defense, but even then, when he does get taken down, he is back to his feet like as soon as his ass hits the canvas. So yeah, maybe he's just not too concerned with. Maybe he's not too concerned with sprawling and shit like that. But
I mean, the speed allows him to get up. Also, just he's literally up, and if you blink, you'll miss it. So. His speed can come into play. He is a bit shorter. Let's look at the height. So Elliott has a 4-inch height advantage, and the reach is almost even. But I mean, you can't say, Tim Elliott's gonna catch him on the ground. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. This is MMA crazy. Actually, I can't say crazier things to happen, because really crazier things haven't happened. This would be one of the craziest things, if not the craziest thing ever to happen in UFC history, and as far as a fight goes and upsets. I don't know. Demetrius Johnson just too good. It's really all that matters. Demetrius Johnson too good. Tim Elliott, yeah, he beat tough guys, and yeah, he beat Titan guys, but he's just not at the top. There's nothing in his game that can beat DJ. Mighty Mouse is the pound-for-pound king, in greatest of all time discussions at this point. He's looking to break records now, title defense records as far as that goes. He's gonna beat Tim Elliott very, very quickly and very, very decisively. I always say, DJ is gonna tap him out in the 4th round, but then he goes out there and starches, say, Cejudo in the 1st round. Super crazy good in Muay Thai in the clinch in that fight. I think this is going to be quick. I think Demetrius Johnson going to knock out Tim Elliott on the feet in the 1st round. Tim Elliott better on the ground than on the feet, although he is improving on the feet, so I give him props for that. But I think Demetrius Johnson keeps it where he has the biggest advantage. He has advantages everywhere, but I think his biggest advantage is probably on the feet. I think he'll knock out Tim Elliott in the 1st round.
A couple of things I want to mention. Demetrius Johnson, yes, he's the pound-for-pound king. He also gets better every single fight. He shows us new wrinkles in his game. Like, he hadn't really shown us those knees to the body that he threw at Henry Cejudo, that he just destroyed him with. He hadn't shown those too much before, and then he shows them off. Tim Elliott He's the same exact guy, or at least on The Ultimate Fighter when I watched him there. He's the same exact guy he was when he was with the UFC prior to getting cut. So he's, just stayed the same. Demetrius Johnson, even though he's already the greatest, is getting better and better every single fight. Demetrius Johnson should be in talks to be the greatest of all time. Talk all you want about how this division's thin. I just think that Demetrius is that damn good.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Tim Elliott, I give him props for even being here and being up against a guy, but he's going to be outclassed so much. I think Johnson, this is going to be a highlight reel finish for him. Just another win on his highlight reels. He already has more than enough to fill a highlight reel, but it's going to be overflowing after tonight. DJ, give me him by knockout pretty quickly. Let's pick who we think are going to take home bonuses. Performance of the night ×2, and then fight of the night. You can go first. Who are you going to give your performance of the night to? Who do you think picked up $50K? And also your fight of the night.
I think that Tim Elliott takes home a performance bonus because if you beat Demetrius Johnson via guillotine choke, obviously you're getting a performance bonus. Okay, so we can cut that right there for if that really happens, so I can say that I was right. Performance bonuses for fight of the night. That's going to go to Dong Hyun Kim versus Brandon O'Reilly because maybe round of the night because the first round is just going to be fucking wild as shit. As for performance bonuses, all depends on who wins, but I would think that if Ryan Hall gets a finish, he's going to get one. And I know that the fight to watch, a lot of people are saying is Cejudo Benavidez. I'm going to go away from that. Culibao versus Cannonier, another first round, slobber knocker. But I think that Demetrius Johnson probably pulls home an extra $50K. So $50K is going to Demetrius Johnson, Ryan Hall, and $100K to the total fight of Baba O'Reilly and the Maestro Dong.
Awesome. My fight of the night also will go to Dong Hyun Kim and Brendan O'Reilly. I hate to be the same there, but I think that's going to be an awesome fight. And for my performances, will go to, let's go Demetrius Johnson for sure. And let's see here. I'm going to give my other one to the Baby Assassin. I think he'll pull off one of the quicker finishes on the card, and that's typically what gets bonuses. I think Culibao, I don't think he gets it done in the first round, and same with Masvidal if he even gets it done inside the distance at all. So I think they're going to lean with DJ, Moreno, Little Dong, and Brendan O'Reilly. All right, let's move on to our DraftKings team. If you have it ready to go, if you have it in front of you, let us know your 6 fighters you're playing for DraftKings.
I've got to sign into my DraftKings account real fast, so you tell me yours first.
My team, we got, let's see here. We got Brandon Moreno. We got Ryan Hall. We got Dong Hyun Kim. We got Ian Culibao. We got Alexis Davis. And we got Devin Clark. My iffy one is Devin Clark, and my other kind of iffy one is Davis. Just because of the layoff for Davis, and I'm not too sure how good Devin Clark actually is. But Devin Clark was basically just because I needed a room, and I think he's going to get the finish, so I played him. And Davis, sort of same situation. But as far as Moreno, I think he's for sure going to get the finish. Ryan Hall, kind of an iffy one just because I'm not positive he gets the finish. I think he actually could win by decision. Dong Hyun Kim, I actually really, really like this one just because he's going to pick up a whole whack of points. Because he's going to get the knockout late, but a lot of strikes will land before that. And Ian Culibao, similar situation. I think he's going to pick up a relatively good amount, large amount of points as well. Knockout win over Cannonier.
My team is Cannonier because he's cheap, and I wanted to get Demetrius Johnson on my team. So I got Cannonier, Demetrius Johnson, and I, of course, reserve the right to change my team because I made this quick as lightning. But Cannonier because he has potential to finish the fight. Demetrius Johnson because I think he styles on Tim Elliott. George Masvidal because I kind of think he styles on Jamie Moyle because I'm fading Caitlyn Curran. Ryan Hall because I'm fading Gray Maynard. And Josh Stansbury because I'm banking on Clark not having a chin whatsoever. But once again, I reserve the right to change it.
I feel like you picked like 2 of those guys almost.
2 of them completely?
No, you picked Masvidal, Demetrius Johnson, You didn't pick Cannonier. You didn't pick, or you did pick Hall. So you picked, I think, 3 of them. And then,
I picked
Moyle.
against Cannonier, but I put him on my team. Here's who I picked. Johnson, I picked him. Masvidal, I picked him. Moyle, I picked her. Hall, I picked him. So I didn't pick 2 of them, Cannonier and Stansbury.
All right, fair enough. All right.
But I picked them because they're cheap and might get a finish.
Yes. That does it for episode 53 of Before the Battle. I hope you guys enjoyed. Brian Jeffries, really appreciate you taking time. Was this the first time on BTB? I want to say no, but I feel like I haven't. Was it? Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever been on BTB. It's quite an honor. I had a lot of fun, Nick. Hopefully our picks do decent, and hopefully the fans enjoyed watching. I'm going to do another show almost exactly like this in about 2.5 hours on MMA Mania's Facebook page. So
you might as well just take this audio and rerun it there.
I thought about it. If you could just start the show by saying, "Welcome to MMA Mania's pre-fight show," then we could just cut it, put it there, and I could just drink some man-mosas while I'm supposed to be doing that show instead.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Let the people know where they can check you out on social media, where they can find your videos, and as you said, the live stream. Let them know where they can find that as well. Anything else you got to plug away.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Flyin Brian J, and basically from there, I'm gonna fucking pester you as much as possible to go like my other shit. So basically, at Flyin Brian J on Twitter is where you need to go, and then I will tell you where to go from there. That's like the hub. Then I'll send you to my Facebook. I'll send you to my Twitter. I'll send you to my. Do I have an Instagram? I got an Instagram and my Pinterest. My what else is there? LinkedIn. Fucking
MySpace.
MySpace, yes, and. There's Tumblr. On my Tumblr, I got a Tumblr, so you just follow me on Twitter, and then I'll send you a DM everywhere else you can follow me. Thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. Give the fucking video a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that.
Yes, thumbs up are always nice. Subscribe if you haven't already. As far as me, you can check me out on the Twitter, as always, at NickUFC. Always down to chat about MMA. Don't know a whole lot else than about MMA, so you can test me, quiz me with your pop culture knowledge, and we'll see if I share the same knowledge as you. My guess is no. You can check out my writing over at bloodyelbow.com. Always pumping out the content and interview pieces out every week. I got like 2 or 3 to write right after I'm done the show, so hopefully those will be up before the card starts in a few hours. That's the plan, but no guarantees, just because not kind of on time. Don't have a whole lot of time to do that, but we'll see if that happens. My podcast, my other show, I should say, hosted each and every week with Andrew the Clown Lawrence. Although out of the past 4 episodes, he's only been here for 1, I think, or maybe out of the 3, he's been here for 1. I don't know. He's been gone for a long time. He's in California right now at Disneyland. Last time I checked, so. Enjoy the MMA Circus episode 87. Released it this past Tuesday. This past Wednesday, had 3 great guests: Alexis Davis, Gerald Mershart, and Rob Font. Of course, Font and Davis fight tonight. Good. Best of luck to them. Episode 88 will be out next Wednesday, as per usual. Don't know on the guests yet. Keep your eyes peeled for that. I released 4 interviews on Bloody Elbow's YouTube channel, youtube.com/MMA Nation DOT.com. You can check those out. Andre Harrison, Brad Katona. Those interviews, 2 great ones, and Andre Harrison fights December 31st for WSOF 34. I will have a feature piece on kind of generic, but I'm not going to really talk about it, but look out for that hopefully within the next week or so. I talked to some boxing coaches from American Top Team, and hopefully we'll have that out within the next week or so. Could be a bit longer, but keep your eyes peeled for that. I think that's about it. So just check me out there. Make sure to check out Flyin Brian Jeffries on the World Wide Web. As he said, he can be found just about anywhere. I'm sure even places he doesn't even know. So I think that's it. Tough finale goes down tonight. Kicks off. Let me grab the time quickly. So 7 ET, and 4 Pacific. That's the Fight Pass prelims kicking things
6
off.
Central.
Yeah, 6 Central. That's the time zone to be in, even though nobody is in it really except for me and Flyin Brian. There you go for Flyin Brian Jeffries. I'm Nick Baldwin, and enjoy the fights.